The Basilica of Saints Felice and Fortunato in Vicenza. Exterior. History. The Basilica of Saints Felice and Fortunato is an important early model of Christian culture and one of the most significant monuments in Vicenza. It is located in the western part of Vicenza, a once suburban area of the city. Built in the Romanesque style, it has undergone several reconstructions, but part of its original structures are still visible today. We shall now take a brief look at its particular history. The monumental complex of the Saints Felice and Fortunato Basilica has its roots in the millennial history of the Roman Empire. The Roman part of the church was connected to an acropolis which stood along the ancient Via Postumia. The consular road, which now runs through the area under the modern Via Palagio, began on the east side of the city, crossed the gate called the Castle, and continued westward in the direction of Verona Mediolanum. Many Roman remains were found in the area of San Felice over several excavations between 1907 and 1979. These relics are preserved in part at the Civic Museum of Vicenza and part of the antiquarium of the Basilica. The vast necropolis stretched right along the south of the Basilica side. Among the most significant finds, you can admire the stele of Petronio with an inscription, and the basilium, the bench of the priests of the magistrates, on which some of the tools are depicted with which the Romans offered sacrifices to the gods. The stele was recovered from an altar table. Another interesting find is the sacred altar to Venus recovered from the martyrion masonry of the basilica. It testifies to the possible presence of a temple in the basilica dedicated to the goddess. The necropolis was frequented by the same Christians. From here developed the cult of the brothers Felice and Fortunato, martyrs from the Vicenza, beheaded in Aquileia at the time of the persecution of Diocletian, from 303 to 304 A.D. With the edict of Milan of Constantine I the Great, and Licinius proclaimed the religious toleration on Roman Empire territory in 313, the Christian community of Vicenza became more numerous and soon obtained the permission to transfer the remains of San Felice to the Vicenza cemetery. At the same time, the remains of his brother Fortunato were left in Aquileia. The information about the fact that the remains of the martyrs were divided between the two cities may confirm, for example, the ecclesiastical Latin poet Venanzio Fortunato. The treasure discovered inside the cinerary urn of the martyrs in 1813 contains coins of the Emperor Constantius Gallus, who governed in 351 through 354. Therefore, it may go back to the beginning of the second half of the 4th century. But the devotion to the two martyrs was growing more and more, and so, in the late 4th and early 5th century, a small ecclesial classroom was erected, oriented, and without an apse. Basically, a step towards the basilica. The small classroom, probably demolished due to the various disasters, was replaced by a larger building in the middle of the 5th century. The Vandal and Visigoth invaders in the 5th century and the Gothic War in the 6th century caused damage, but this great early Christian building was soon restored, and so the old memory of Saints Felice and Fortunato shone through once again thanks to the work of Sublimisphere Gregory during the period between 543 and 568. Though there was a suggestion that Gregory had been the trusted person not of Byzantine Emperor Justinian, but of the king Theodorico, so his activities should go back to the beginning of the 6th century. Around the middle of the 8th century, the Benedictine monks built a major monastery in the San Felice area. It prospered and became rich and powerful thanks to the favors of the kings of the Lombards. The Vicenza area was in fact no longer under Byzantine, but Lombard influence. In 698, with the schism of Aquileia, the cult of Saints Vito and Modesto was introduced, and the monks enlarged the church by extending the narthex in the vast quadrangle. In 1899, Berengario was defeated at the river Trebia, and the Hungarians, who were rampant in Italy, devastated everything. Even the basilica and the monastery were affected. Bishop Rodolfo, who reigned from 970 to 983, provided restoration. With some modification to the apse, and the basilica became circular, and the crypt was created to worthily receive the remains of San Felice. By the 11th century, the bell tower was built to the north of the apse. In 1117,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?